Yeah, the other way. Yeah. Okay, friends out there in Zoom land, I will go ahead and start with reciting the Namo Tassa and the three refuges for those who like to join. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang saranang gacchami, dhammang saranang gacchami, sanghang saranang gacchami, dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami, dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami, Yutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami, tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami, tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami, tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Welcome, friends, to this Wednesday evening Dhamma discussion and meditation practice. So I hope everyone was able to get the mailing I sent out on Monday with the today's topic in brief, and I included the same attachment that I had already sent out the week before that. About tonight's topic. And tonight's topic is the second of the insight knowledges that we started discussing last week. Last week we started discussing the insight knowledges and started with the first one, which was called the knowledge of rise and fall. Now, the reason why they call these insight knowledges is because it's not just ordinary vipassana, it's an advanced level of vipassana meditation that really can only start when one has gained a deep level of concentration, when the five hindrances have subsided. And of course, when people are even practicing just general mindfulness, they may get some kind of insights, but not these specific kinds of insights that lead to more profound sort of realizations and so on. So this is a brief review. The knowledge of rise and fall is tuning in to how quickly the sensory contacts are arising and vanishing moment by moment. And that's why it's not easy to clearly see that because of our defilements or our hindrances. And if the mind is kind of still a little drowsy or gets lost in its thoughts quite often, or you're restless, kind of reading this, and then you're not going to be able to keep the mind focused. So these insight knowledges are sort of like a scientist who initially looks down through a microscope and maybe sees, turning up the microscope a bit, he might see cellular, some cells within a drop of blood. They might, be able to see a couple of cells and how they move a bit. But if they turn the microscope up a lot further to 100, 200, or 500 power, then they can even see molecules and maybe even the atomic structure of those cells and how quickly those subtler elements are changing. Anyway, so it's similar to these practices of the insight knowledges. But so the insight into rise and fall means, when it starts with the breathing. So let's say when you start focusing on the breathing, you notice how the breath starts, lasts for a second or two and stops, the in-breath. So you train on seeing how the in-breath, the beginning, the middle, and end of the in-breath, how it begins and ends. And then you notice the beginning and ending of the out-breath. So it's a very specific, something that you're closely paying attention to. So that's the first training. So you gain concentration while you're doing that. And while you're doing that, in between the in-breaths and the out-breaths, you'll notice some other things just coming and going, like a little, body twitch, or maybe a loud sound kind of just arises and vanishes, maybe in your house somewhere, or some other body sensation, a little itch arises. And so you start paying attention to how quickly different things are coming and going. But the breath is still there as sort of a pole position, as your tethering post, to constantly seeing that arising and vanishing. But as the mind becomes clearer, it starts to notice many other things coming and going. So when that becomes very clear, then you can notice virtually many, many things occurring even in the space of 1 or 2 seconds. And you see how quickly they just come, last a fraction of a second and vanish. Body sensations, sounds are very good, and even your thoughts. So when that becomes very, very clear, you could say that that's the beginning of this insight into rising and falling. We call it rising and falling. I like to call it arising and vanishing, because it arises and vanishes. And so the in-breath arises, it lasts a second or two, it vanishes. And while you're observing that, you notice within one in-breath, there's many sub-movements of the expanding in-breath. Each one is arising and vanishing. So you have to very specifically tune into that. Just as a scientist, if they're trying to, let's say, find a cure for a disease, they have a certain idea, and they have to tune into that specifically. They have to turn into whether it's a red blood cell, a white blood cell, or something else in there, or DNA. They have to, zoom in on a specific DNA to see if there's any mutation or so on. So in the same way, the meditator tunes his mind to this arising and vanishing. And that's why it requires a deep state of concentration. And because people might say, well, why do we want to do that? Well, that's how we understand impermanence. So, impermanence is one of the 3 characteristics, anicca, dukkha, and anatta. And a lot of people think anicca is just, somebody dies and you say, oh, things are permanent, or you knock the glass off the table and it breaks, oh, impermanent, or your car breaks down, impermanent. And so they have a very superficial understanding about impermanence. But in the Buddhist teaching, impermanence really means the impermanence of the mental process and the five aggregates. So anyway, you're tuning in to seeing how quickly things arise and vanish. And if you can sustain that without the mind falling asleep or getting drowsy or getting lost in thoughts, it's similar to like in this the readout that I gave you. If you have read that, you know, he views these things just coming and going, like raindrops coming and going, or if you have heating water in a skillet, or I have a hot skillet, and you throw drops of water, they would just go psst, psst, psst. So you're actually experiencing these kind of sensations, without clinging to them. That's why the reason why we don't see the impermanence is our mind is clinging on to that itch, and we say, "Oh, that itch! Oh, I want to scratch it." And we're observing it. We think it's some solid object that we want to get rid of. So that shuts down your whole perception process and creates this agitation in the mind, or getting lost in one of your thoughts. So anyway, so this the rising and falling, it builds up speed in which you don't even see things arise. They're just vanishing so quickly that you hardly even notice them arising. They've just vanished. Something just vanished. And it's very similar to looking up in the sky on a dark night when there's a meteor shower, if you've ever done that. You look up in the sky and all you see is something just zip. All you see is vanishing to the sky. You didn't even see where it came from. It just vanished. So in that way, we're noticing sights, well, especially the sounds, body sensations, and even thoughts and urges, ideas, or even mental images just coming and going through the senses at a rapid speed. And this is crucial because this helps us to understand how our world is created. When we don't see impermanence, our mind is identifying and clinging to the various things coming through our senses, which you're seeing, hearing, feeling on the body, and reacting to them. And it's the perception, basically. The mind is stringing all these perceptions together, and you don't see them arising and vanishing because they get can't think of the word now. Like a motion picture. Okay, it's probably easier to explain that. If you have a movie reel of film and it's running fast through a projector, you don't see the spaces in the individual frames because our mind is too slow to see that. And so it looks like a solid flowing sequence. But we all know that the old-fashioned movie rolls of film were made up of individual frames. And if you looked at it, just unravel the reel, and you see, oh yes, it's just made up of all these frames. And even to move a finger that much, it needs a separate frame. And you put 100 or 1,000 together, and it looks like you're doing something like this, but you don't see the spaces in between. So that's called impermanence. That's how we're seeing things in the terms of permanence. We think these things are permanent. And it's because we haven't understood impermanence in its deeper level. Now, I know this might be over the top for some of you, but again, this is advanced Vipassana meditation. And it's good to you kind of know what's happening behind the scenes. Now, the second insight knowledge is the knowledge of dissolution. That means when you're starting to observe things arising and vanishing at that very high speed, the mind has no longer time to think about any particular object or to remember the past and the future connected with the object, because there's always something else coming on the heels, and you let one moment vanish and another one comes. That one vanishes and you're open to the next one and the next one. So you don't give the mind time to hold on to the one that just vanished. And normally the mind holds on to the one that vanishes, right? Let's see if, example, let's say if I go like this, okay, that sound vanished, but now you might thinking, why did Bhante clap his hands? Now you're thinking about the past. You're bringing in the past to that. You couldn't let go of that, that object. The sound already vanished, but your mind is still holding on to it, building up a scenario. And that's what normally our mind does all the time, because that's the way it's been conditioned. Okay, so this knowledge of dissolution, and people have kind of explained it in different ways. Now, the way I just explained it is the one way, is that the mind has no time to create storylines over any sound or body sensation or thought that comes to your mind, because it's opened up and is noticing a steady stream of things, one after the other, without holding on to the past. It's just going from moment to moment, following the flow of sensory contacts, moment to moment, as they are occurring on the body, the sounds or thoughts, even maybe smells or tastes. And you're really super concentrated, not being distracted. So if that can be maintained long enough, then your mental world that you've been creating through our attachment and clinging, and mostly living in the past and the future, that starts dissolving. And so, it's like the beginning of a paradigm shift in the consciousness. And things start dissolving. And one of the easiest ones is maybe parts of your body start to dissolve. Maybe you can't feel your hands anymore. And it feels like your hands have disappeared. Or maybe some other part of your body. Or a whole body. Because I've mentioned that many times in our guided meditations. Allow that feeling, try to feel the outline of the body, but at a certain point, even that outline of the body may dissolve, because you're no longer thinking about it, and it could feel like you don't even have a body. So that's one aspect also of dissolution. That's a very profound and deep aspect of dissolution. Or the fact that you're no longer really hearing any sounds, or the mind, everything can start to sort of dissolve. And that's when a panic can set in, and that's what pulls a lot of people back. So our conditioned world, our little sterilized conditioned world of me and in my little house and doing these things, my past and the future, this is a mentally created movement. It's being created all the time within your mind. And people don't like to hear it, but according to the deepest levels of Buddhist sort of mental physics, that's what's occurring. So anyway. So that state of dissolution, when your familiar world around you, even though there's still sounds and you can still hear some sounds, and the mind is no longer creating pictures or ideas about any of them. So the whole perceptual process shifts. And it feels like, and even the sense of yourself can dissolve too. at least the hard edges of the self will start dissolving too. And again, that can be scary for people. So, that's the knowledge of dissolution is really the beginning of the real deeper insights into how illusion is created. We always talk about the world as illusion, this is an illusion. Well, this is how it's an illusion. It's an illusion because the mind keeps on as ignorant and clinging, and it's holding on to these memories of everything that's coming through us, identifying it as I, me, and mine, and this is my body, this is my feeling, this is my perception, my thoughts, my decisions, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. All this, our mind is constantly, recreating, and this is what creates our little mental world. Whatever it focuses on, that's what becomes your mental world. Anyway, so when you see that our, mostly our world and all of our opinions and our ideas and even our ideas of, what is beauty and what is ugly, and we get attached to all these conventional ideas. We see, when you have this understanding, you realize how we've been conditioned and been caught in the web of delusion or illusion, and also the suffering, because we keep on repeating the same things over and over again. So that's what this second insight knowledge, when you can really see that clearly, when you start understanding how our mind just creates our little world through its conditioning, and it starts letting go of that, as you do in the meditation. When you reach this stage in your meditation, the mind is automatically not creating these these ideas of a solid, concrete world. But it's in the mind. I mean, outside the world is still there, but we're talking about the mind. We're talking about how the mind gets caught in its clinging and desires and holding on to our emotions and desires, how that keeps the mind very limited. So that's why this contemplation of dissolution is very powerful. And it leads to the third of these insight knowledges. If you read a little farther in the handout, the third knowledge is the appearance of terror. Now, when you see how and understand how the mind has basically just been, deluded and is caught in this elusive web of so-called human existence, and especially how our mind is got caught in the web of karma, and how, because of all of our actions of body, speech, and mind, have brought the reactions back to us, and especially the sort of the negative reactions and the pain and suffering of being caught in that. So all of a sudden you see that clearly, and you become terrified, but you become terrified of the ignorance in your mind. You're not becoming terrified of the external world. You're becoming terrified of ignorance. That means how our mind is locked into this conditioned world, especially in its limited, repeating habits, so over and over again, of the way we think, speak, believe, and so on. So again, this is important to understand. A lot of people think, oh, we should hate the world, or oh, the world's an evil place, and terrified of the world and locking themselves in a room because they don't want to go out, or something like that. No, that's the wrong idea about it. It's being terrified of your own ignorance, how you've allowed your mind to be caught in these habits that you don't like, but you don't know how to get out of them because of your limited mental power. So that's what it is, really, being terrified of ignorance. and being overly attached to those five aggregates. And that's what it needs. It needs this kind of awakening to realize that we need to do something about our life. No one's going to help you, because the whole world, all 7 billion people almost, they're caught in the same web of ignorance, depending on their own society, culture, country, where they live, and holding on to all their different opinions and ideas about things, getting in fights and arguments, killing, raping, stealing, plundering, doing every kind of negative action based on these clinging to things that are essentially just an illusion in the mind. So it sees the need for you to do, if you're caught in that and you realize, yeah, I'm caught in that. So it gives you, hopefully it will give you the impetus to, to do something about it. Now, of course, all of you are, because you've at least been doing some meditation, for some time. But we're talking about, a lot of people don't build up to that point, however. The way meditation is taught in a lot of places, just to reduce stress or so on. But, this is a meditation practice that goes very, very deep to the root of ignorance and the root of conditioning. So a lot of people are not ready, they're probably ready for that, because it entails maybe changing some of the ways they believe about the world. But anyway, that's another topic. So these 3 insight knowledges so far, the first tuning your mind in to seeing how quickly the 6 senses, sight, sound, smells, taste, touches, are coming and going through that focused awareness. And then as you sustain that, and the mind stops bringing in the past and the future about things you're hearing, or even about your body, and identifying with it, then that dissolution starts. It's a very gradual process. You might have just a tiny little glimpse. Just for a fraction of a second, the feeling of your hand disappeared. For a fraction of a second, the feeling of the outline of the body disappeared. For a fraction of a second, there was just a moment of hearing, but nothing heard. So you can get these kind of insights, as you're developing, mindfulness practice, and as you develop concentration. But they can become more frequent and even much deeper also. And the deepest levels are when you're starting to get really see how quickly the mind operates. And all neuroscientists will tell you that the brain operates this way. I mean, it's firing, the synapses and the different parts of the brain are firing at billions of times in a second at the speed of light, because it's electricity, the neurons in our brain, and also the sense stimuli that are coming through our senses. It's occurring so rapidly, but they never explain it to normal people, or to explain what the significance of that is, or how we've allowed our mind to get caught in delusions. They know it, but they don't explain it to anybody, and they keep feeding the delusions. So anyway, the Buddha had said enough is enough. I'm not going to stop fighting delusions, stop feeding these delusions. And so he went on to teach this very powerful meditation practice. So anyway, so the insight knowledge of the dissolution brings this kind of knowledge of terror. But again, it's not being afraid. It's just being, in the beginning, being afraid of the ignorance that's within your own mind. And in fact, I had an insight in my first meditation course that I took in Nepal. We were doing a different kind of meditation, but at a certain point one night, I had a powerful experience, and I said, "Oh my God, I've been ignorant my whole life." So it was a kind of a moment like that, realizing that I've been ignorant my whole life, and I've been in a mental prison It was that powerful. And that's really what, really cemented my, motivation to, even to become a monk and continue the meditation practice. So, and then, but after a while, that idea of terror begins to mellow out. And now you know that being attached to things, buying into your delusions, being attached to the world, thinking these are going to be your salvation or your source of happiness, all the toys and gadgets that we have, or even relationships. You see that it becomes, instead of terror, it mellows out into, you see the danger. That means, and so you just, you don't go there. So it's similar to the simile they give of, let's say you have a fire pit full of red hot glowing coals. And a couple of strong people grabbed you and started dragging you to the pit of the charcoal pit, which is, very hot. And so you would be terrified, right? They say they're going to throw you in that pit. You'd be terrified. But then they don't throw you in the pit, they let you go and you run away. And now you know that the fire is hot, so you just don't go there. And so the knowledge of danger, you see these things are dangerous, but you're not terrified anymore. And so you keep your distance. In other words, if you have certain bad habits, don't go frequenting the bar or the brothel or the gambling casino or whatever else it might be, or food, whatever problems, or hanging out with certain people that are, trying to drag you to do things that you don't want to do. So like that, you see the danger in, forming the attachments of these kind just to get some temporary, pleasure or some satisfaction. So anyway, the terror just mellows out into, you see the danger of, let's say, like breaking the precepts, for example, on a very kind of, grosser level. You see the danger of becoming a habitual liar or a habitual thief. Eventually you're going to get caught, or whatever, any other addictions. And so it forces you, it helps you to develop that motivation and inner strength to avoid those kind of places that could sort of tempt you. So anyway, that's the purpose of the knowledge of terror and danger. Now again, a lot of people don't get to that point. They meditate, just to feel good, and they, it's kind of like, that's enough for them. And, don't touch their attachments too strongly or other sorts of things. And that's okay, if that's what they want, that's good. But for others, once they really understand how deep the mind goes and how deep our delusions and attachment goes, then they want to sort of try to get more from it. So anyway, I'm not going to go on any longer with that sort of explanation, because we'll save the remaining stages for the next week. But now, having said that much, I'd like to open it up to some questions. Let's see if there's anything in the chat box. What should I do when I realize and feel the dissolution stage? How should I contemplate it? What should I do? Well, I just explained. It should come automatically. If you really experience dissolution, and not only that, but understanding how the mind is created, the illusions, and and got you trapped in the illusion of, I, me, and mine, the illusion of these things will bring me happiness in the world, and these things I don't like, being caught between likes and dislikes, and then taking that out by doing unskillful behaviors and so on. That is what you have to contemplate, and seeing it as something really important, not just kind of a passing thing, but as seeing something that's really important for your own well-being, for your mind, because reflecting on how much you've suffered in the past by being caught in your habitual thought patterns and other ideas of what is real, what is right and wrong, what is good or bad. All these are conditioned states. And we need them to some extent to function in society, but people cling to them, grasp them, and think this is absolute real, and we have to fight to defend our ideas and what we believe and what. And some of that may be true, but we have to understand it in perspective. And you also have to follow the middle path, that you can't immediately just let go of everything, your family or your other things and so on. And usually for most people, it's not going to happen that quick anyway. So, but after you feel that, and then the dispassion, that what you mentioned in the next, related to the previous question, I feel a lot of dispassion. That's right. That is the result of understanding the nature of illusion and the nature of conditioning, and about how we're trapped in our habits, but we haven't gotten out of them yet. So people get depressed. They think, "Oh, I'll never be able to do this. How can I give up all these things?" Then it's true. It's not going to all go away quickly. So, but that dispassion or detachment has to then come. It's like, still we give in, even though we know telling lies is not a good thing. Maybe we still do it because of certain conditions, or using some bad language, or our habits are not easy to overcome. So they're not all going to be overcome in just a few meditation periods, or even some deep insights. To take the whole life to gradually overcome some of our strong habits. So what you should do after understanding dissolution is try to then apply that to any remaining sort of habits that you have in your life, or whatever, your attitudes toward things, and gradually you get this passion. It's like a child, right? So you have a young child. It plays with certain toys, it gets satisfaction from them, but it grows up, it's naturally going to lose interest in certain kind of toys and move on to other kind of toys, right? And so the same way with when you start meditating, you'll gradually lose interest in going to, stimulating shows, or wanting to get drunk or intoxicate your mind, or any number of other things to give excitement, right? People need some excitement in their life. So we have to develop that excitement about meditation. And when you start getting insights, it does. You do get excited about wanting to go deeper into meditation, but it's not as easy as just going into a shop and buying some toy, take it home. It takes longer to change our mind than to change the world around us. It's easier to change the world around us, than to change our mind about certain things. So this next question, would you please explain signlessness as it pertains to the state of Nibbana? Well, you're getting a little step ahead of us, because that's going to be in the next weeks when we go on to the remaining insight knowledges. But basically, the signlessness even occurs in this state of dissolution. So a sign is the way you recognize something. So say you hear a loud bang, and so the sign of it comes to you as a sign of something maybe dangerous or disturbing, something you should look at. Or maybe a strong pain in your body. It's a sign of, oh, this is my body, this is a pain in my body. What is it? Is it cancer or something? So these are signs, and our mind is totally, into signs. And that's all it consists of. So the state of dissolution, these signs are dissolving because the mind is no longer clinging to the signs. The signs meaning the perception and the pleasant and the painful quality that you're giving to these perceptions. In the past and the future, the ideas of the past and the future related to these sensory contacts, those are the signs that then trigger off other things. So the dissolution, these signs start dissolving because your mind is no longer holding on to them and thinking about them. So that is what leads to the state of nibbana. That's the first state, and we'll talk more about this in the next week, or the next couple of weeks as we go along. Okay. And I've already talked about this before, in other sessions and so on. So this is basically a review of Dhamma talks that I've already given before on the subject, because it's such a deep subject and most people's minds are not ready in terms of weakening the hindrances and developing that level of concentration that it can really clearly see these sort of stages of rise and fall, rising, vanishing, and then the dissolution stage. Or even if they do, they might not want to go on to develop that appearances, terror and danger, and so on. Because the appearance of terror and danger may not, if you don't develop that, it may not be enough to overcome your temptations and the desire to just go ahead and keep repeating, some negative types of behaviors. So anyway, I think we'll bring this discussion to an end. The last one more. Okay. One more question about dissolution. Can take the form of the meditator apparently losing his concentration. Seems like he can no longer focus on anything. His attention keeps sliding off. No, that's not the state of dissolution. It's a state of just not being concentrated. And losing your concentration, you're very concentrated in the state of dissolution. In fact, you have to be in the first or second jhana to even attain this level of concentration to discern the rise and fall. So you're not losing the concentration. It's that you're losing the ability for the mind to keep recreating the past and the future, because the mind is just totally in the present moment, floating from moment to moment, without the clinging. So therefore the object seems to disappear. It may think you're losing your concentration, but it's not. You just entered a state of super concentration, which maybe you never experienced before. So anyway, this takes a lot of experience and practice to understand a lot of the nuances of these, different stages, even jhanas and the insight knowledges. Okay, friends. So
Is there time for one more question? Or
Let me see. There's one here. It sounds like the mind stops labeling everything. That's right. It stops. At that point, you don't want to be labeling anything. You're far beyond labeling at that point. Even at the stage of rise and fall, things are going. You can't. Your thoughts can't even come up that quick to label something. It's already vanished. That's why it seems like it's dissolving. You're not hearing anything. If somebody had one more question, you had a. Okay, Damon, go ahead and ask your question.
yeah, I just, you know, it seems like these last few stages, dissolution, fear, and danger, for me, have been characterized by just it hasn't been very pleasant in general. It has been characterized by anxiety. On the day of mindfulness the other day, I reported to you during the Q&A that I was feeling a lot of existential angst that I think is characteristic of the terror and danger stages. Like something is really wrong here. This whole thing about not self is actually freaking me out. It's not making me feel good. There's no escape here. I see the truth, but it's like I can't find the rope to get across the river when the tiger is chasing me.
You have to get these experiences over and over and over again until you that sort of terror, kind of that existential angst starts to fade away. So, as I mentioned, these things are not going to necessarily change you overnight, but it depends on how clear those perceptions are too, as to how much of that angst that the mind would hold on to. But yeah, you're right. I mean, that kind of experience that you mentioned, that sort of angst of seeing how the illusion is, the ego is an illusion and so on, and how we're trapped in that. Yes, and again, that as you get that over and over, that will mellow out, and then you'll just see it as a danger. And so you'll be more aware of your ego. When your ego starts to loom up, you can say, okay, don't get so attached to that. It's just my opinion, my idea, this and that, and you don't take yourself so seriously anymore. You do have to take the practice seriously, because it is serious business if you just keep letting your mind stay stuck in however it's been. So, but as you get these experiences over and over, that terror will just mellow out into the danger. And then the next one is dispassion that somebody mentioned. We'll talk about that next week. Okay, so
Thank you.
we want to go ahead and have a short break, and then come back to our yoga practice, and then have our meditation. Okay. at the clock so I can see the time. Bring it further this way. Okay. Okay, friends, so let's try to stand straight. Keep your feet a few inches apart. Keep the feet kind of parallel to each other. Relax your arms at the sides. Gently close your eyes. Try to feel your eyes in the sockets. From that point down the eyes, try to feel the outline of the standing body. Then begin some deep, slow breathing. We're going to take about 3 or 4 seconds to just breathe in, drawing the air from the bottom up to the top of the lungs, holding in the air for 2 or 3 seconds. And feeling the last bit of air go out of the lungs on the out breath. Just breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, standing here and now. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, standing here and now. Breathing in, feeling the whole body. Breathing out, feeling the whole body. Now we'll combine this breathing with the movements, repeating each movement 3 times. So on the next in-breath, raise the arms over the head, interlock the fingers, turn the palms up, straighten the arms, stretch your head back, stretch upwards and backwards. Out breath, touch the top of your head. Again, in breath, palms up, straighten the arms. Stretch. Out, touch the head. The 3rd time, hold the upward stretch longer, try to bend back a little more. Feel the arch in the spine, feel the sensation. And release your fingers, the out breath, arms back to the sides. Feel the sensations in your hands and fingers. And just mentally feel the outline of the standing body, the head on top, arms at the sides, clothing touching the skin, feet pressing the floor. And just remember standing, standing, standing. Letting go of your thoughts. Let the thoughts come and go in the back of the mind. Just keep remembering standing, standing. In the next in-breath, push up on the toes while raising the arms over the head in this way. Face the hands toward each other and stretch up. Out breath, come back down. Coordinate the movement with the breathing. Use the in-breath to help lift up the body. Stretch. Out. Once more, in. Out. Just feel the outline of the body. Don't give the mind time to get wander into the thoughts. Body is always here and now. Just remember standing, feeling the increased sensations coming and going, arising and vanishing. Pulse of blood, prickly sensation, body movement. And the next in-breath, we're going to do a knee bending. On the in-breath, again, lift up on the toes and raise the arms up front for balance. On the out-breath, bend your knees, lower the body down, balancing on the balls of the feet. Down into the squatting position if you can. And take a deep breath to feel the muscles in the legs pushing the body up. All the way up on the toes. And out breath. In. Out. In. Out breath. Relax. Just keep feeling the body. Increase heartbeat, pulsation. Each one arises and vanishes. So many different little sensations coming and going, which means arising and vanishing. Notice them, they last a second, they vanish. Something else comes. Next we'll do side bending using one arm at a time. On the in-breath, raise your left arm up. Keep your fingers and arms straight, close to the head. On the out-breath, bend over your right side and try to lay your bicep muscle on the side of your head. In-breath, lift up. And the same side again 2 more times, out-breath. out. In the out breath, lower that arm. Next in breath, raise the other arm. Three times to the left side, out breath. As you're doing the exercises, so many different sensations are coming and going with the stretches, the breathing. Out breath, lower the arm. Close the eyes. Feel the outline of the body. Feel all those increased sensations, pulsations, maybe some aches or pain. Those are all just sensations that arise, last a few moments, change, vanish. Don't hold on to them. There's always something else to notice. Heartbeat, breathing. Keep remembering standing, standing. Okay, now spread the feet apart about 3 feet. Wider the better. We'll do twisting from right to left, holding the arms out at the sides. We'll breathe in. On the out breath, look and twist to the right. Keep your eyes focused on the hand going back. On the in breath, come back to the front. And let your feet turn with the body to twist to the left side. The out breath. In breath, the front. Just continue alternating sides again to the right. In breath, front. Once more to each side. Lower the arms. Close the eyes. Feel each foot pressing the floor. Feel the sensation of the legs spread apart, with the hands touching the legs, with the clothes touching the skin. head balanced on top. So all these different sensations make up the image or perception of the standing body. All that's being created just out of sensations and memory. Now we'll do the forward and backward bending. Keep the hands touching the front of the legs. Breathe in. On the out breath, bend forward. Let the hands slide between kneecaps. First time, keep the head up, looking out straight ahead. Try to flatten the spine. Feel the stretch in the back of your legs. In breath, lift up. Move the hands under the buttocks for support. Let your head go back. Breathe out on the out breath. Just be careful. Keep your eyes open. Don't bend back too far the first time. Breathe in, lift up. On the out breath, again bend forward. Let the hands come below your knees. About halfway if you can. Still keep the head up, the legs straight. Flatten the spine. To get the hump out of the spine. In breath, lift up. Once again, the back bends. Be careful. Out breath. In breath, lift up. And the third time, let the hands come down as far as you can towards your feet. Then hold on to your lower legs, your feet. Hold that longer, feeling the stretch in the back of your legs. Also the little bones in the lower spine, let them kind of stretch out. The lower spine joins the sacrum bones. And the in-breath, lift up. One more time, the back bends, be careful. Lift up. And the out breath, relax the shoulders and arms, the sides. Feel the outline of the body. Feel the activated life force due to the deep, slow breathing and the rhythmic movements. Generates a powerful flow of electromagnetic life force energy. Cellular vibration. Just try to feel that. Try to feel that aliveness of the body. This includes sensations of the clothing touching the outer skin as well as the subtler sensations under the skin, body movement, without thinking about them, just noticing how quickly they just come and go. Okay, I'll bring the legs back together. We're going to do just one last exercise. The head turning from right to left, standing straight, and on in-breath, turn the head to the right as far as you comfortably can. Look over your right shoulder. The out-breath, turn 180 degrees back to the left. Look over the left shoulder. If you have a stiff neck, just be careful. In-breath back to the right. Concentrate into the neck vertebrae, feeling or imagining them loosening up. Out-breath left. In right. Out left. On the in-breath, let the head stop in the middle. Keep feeling the whole body. Just remember standing. Feel all those life force vibrations. Okay, so let's come back to our seats for the sitting meditation. Okay, friends, try to sit straight, get comfortable in your posture. Just try to align your spine and the back of your head in a straight line. Just gently close your eyes. You just feel the eyes in your socket. And feel the eyelids stretched over the eyeball. And try to feel the outline of the sitting body. Should be able to kind of just feel a vague outline, feeling of your head on top, the arms at the side, clothing touching the skin, buttocks pressing the seat, feet crossed underneath, pressing the floor. Just try to hold that outline of the body, the mind's eye. And begin taking some deep, slow breaths, like we did in the yoga, just developing this basic mindfulness. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, feeling the whole body. Breathing out, feeling the whole body. Now we're going to count our breaths from 1 to 10, try to develop a more continuous concentration on the breathing. Actually, I'll do the counting for you. Just try to follow that the breathing, concentration. Just keep the attention focused on the expanding and contracting movements in the center of the body. So the next expanding in breath, mentally count to 1. Feel the brief pause. Contracting out breath, also count to 1. Feel the last bit of air go out of the lung. Next in breath, 2. Out breath, 2. In 3. Out 3. Feel the beginning and the end of each of these breaths. In breath 4. Out breath 4. In 5. out 5, in 6, out 6, in 7, out 7, in 8, out 8, in 9, out 9, in 10, out 10. After that out breath, don't control the breath any longer. Just let the breath stop for a few seconds if it likes. And then just keep observing the uncontrolled, shorter breaths. Just keep your attention focused in the same places. Expanding, contracting movements of the abdomen, rib cage, chest. Feel where the clothing rubs against the skin, stomach, rib cage, chest expands and contracts. Keep that as your focus of awareness, concentrated awareness, mindfulness. Knowing when the breath is coming in and knowing when the breath is going out. Know it by feeling the sensation. Try to feel the moment the in-breath starts, last couple of seconds, and then it stops. When the out-breath starts, the last second or two, stop. Try to tune into that starting and stopping, coming and going, or the rising and vanishing of the breath, the in-breath and the out-breath. Try to notice the brief pauses between the breath. If you notice the pause, you'll be there when the out-breath starts. Make that the focus of your attention. Starting, stopping, rising, vanishing. The in-breath and the out-breath. I feel like a scientist looking down through a microscope, turning up the power of the microscope. See that clearly. Noticing how each breath is different, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter. Don't try to control the breath so that you wake however it wants to go. Even in one in breath, you might notice 2 or 3 different sensations. It helps stay focused. You can use these mental reminders to remind yourself in sitting, out, out, sitting. It's the ongoing, continuous present moment. The in-breath begins and ends. The out-breath begins and ends continuously over and over and over again. At the same time, be alert for thoughts that take you away. Letting go of the thought and focusing on the breathing. Remembering in sitting, out, out, sitting. Breath by breath, moment by moment. We still have too many thoughts. Try counting the breaths again by yourself. See if you can count to 10 without the mind getting lost. Or if your breath is very faint, you can take slightly deeper breaths. Feel it easier. The in-breath comes and goes. The out-breath comes and goes. Even while observing the breathing, the pauses between the breaths, you can notice other sensations coming and going, or a sound, the sounds of this voice arising and vanishing. other sensations on the body come and go, itch, heartbeat, body movement. Get yourself lost in thoughts, recognizing lost, or thinking. Just gently letting go of the thoughts. Take a deep, slow breath. Mind back into breathing, body. Back to in, sitting. Out, out, sitting. Turn up the power of the mental microscope. Notice more and subtler sensations coming and going, breathing, other parts of the body. You don't have to look for anything, they just naturally appear in the awareness. Stay alert, awake, grounded, centered in the breathing body, breath by breath, moment by moment. Gradually opening up to the flow of impermanent. In and around the breath coming and going, so many other sensations, sound, mind urges or thought coming and going, quick succession, without following them, trying to hold on to them, think about them. See how many different things you can notice in a short space of time, body sensation, sounds, thought. Mind holds on to any object, sensation, sounds, thoughts, tries to think about them, trigger off other thoughts, and see the suffering involved in that, or disturbs your mental equilibrium. Letting the awareness just float from moment to moment, sensation to sound, thought, sensation. Building up speed more and more, subtly. Moments, rising, vanishing. From time to time, take a few deep, slow breaths. Help keep the mind awake, alert, in the body. Alert to the flow of impermanence. Moment by moment. You have a good perception of that impermanence. See how the concrete idea of the world loses reality. Getting caught up in the past or future. What thoughts arise in the mind based on that sound vibration? Sabbe sankhara anicchati yada panyaya pasati atanibindati dukhi esamaggo visuddhiya dukkha patta nidukkha bhayapatta nibbaya sokapatta nisoka Ontu sabbe pipanino. All conditioned things, the five aggregates of this body, mind, and world are impermanent, just continually arising and vanishing. When one sees this with the eye of wisdom, one becomes disenchanted with suffering, self-created suffering. This is the path to freedom. May the suffering be free from suffering. May the fear-struck be free from fear. May the grieving be free from grief. In this way, may all beings live with mindfulness and wisdom. And thus spoke the Buddha. Now I invite you to join in chanting the word sadhu 3 times slowly. We do the chanting with on a long out breath, feeling those vibrations in the body and mind. So, like take a deep breath. Sadhu. 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 Now mindfully place your hands at the edge of your knees. Take one more deep breath as you breathe in. Stretch your head back and pull the hands on your knees to arch your spine. And lift the head up on an in-breath, and on the out-breath, press your chin to the top of the chest, stretch the neck vertebrae. And lift the chin up level on an in-breath. Relax on the out-breath. Put a smile on your face. Okay, friends, so I hope that you're able to at least have some moments or minutes of, peaceful awareness, some insights into the deeper meaning of impermanence. Try to keep up your meditation practice at home. Again, try to keep practicing the M&Ms. Mindfulness today keeps dukkha away. Stopping every hour. Taking a deep, slow breath. Bring your mind back to the present moment. Letting go of the past and future. Bringing all your Dharma insights come to bear. Send out metta in that 30 seconds or 45 seconds. And continue on what you're doing. Okay? So we'll perhaps see you again next week.
Thank you, Bhante.
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 Namo Buddhaya.
Budaya.
Buddhaya.
Thank you, Bhante.
Everyone Saranai, may the Buddha Dhamma Sangha bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.